Without further ado, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Colonel Beau Higgins.
I'm a notorious weeper, so I get a little touch there. Thank you, Harrison, for that introduction. That was really that's fantastic. You know, it really is an honor and a privilege for me to be here today. You know, like Snapper Garrison kicked off with earlier today, going to Jesuit wasn't really even a choice. You know, my dad, Jim Higgins, was an alumnus here, and you know, that was part of his life. Jesuit was part of his life, and he passed it on to his sons. Hudson's here today. Hunter couldn't make it, who actually taught at Jesuit for a while. You know, it's great to be here today, obviously, to share this not only with the seniors of the class and all the alumni, but in particular, you know, we have, it's amazing to me, we have 10 graduates today that have dads that were in my class of '85. So it's amazing to see that bond over the years. And I believe I got them all here from Walt Bond, Rocky Daigle, Bobby Como, Gerald Duhon, Richie Kernion, Nick LaRusso, Mike McMahon, Robbie Hess, Lee Prange, and Bobby Skinner all have kids in this graduating class that were in my class of '85. So it's amazing to me, that bond, and that's one of my biggest regrets right now, that my son can't come to Jesuit. It was really the toughest part of me retiring in Tampa, was he's going to miss this experience. I think it's very important. I'd say it's also fair to say, for the folks that knew me back in the day, that they're probably as shocked as I am that I'm actually here today to speak. That's a fair statement, I think. I must admit, I'm also shocked, still always shocked, to see Brett Hanneman in the crowd. Knowing him as I did in high school, you know, it's pretty neat to see what he's doing now for Jesuit. We turned out pretty well in the long run, you know. Speaking of which there, Brett, what's going on with the swimming state championships? We got more football than swimming the last couple of years, right? I'm just saying. Just saying. It's probably fair to say that, and looking back in retrospect to this speech, you know, I probably in some ways underachieved at Jesuit. And I look back and I can, you know, to be truthful to myself, probably didn't apply myself as well as I should have. But even with that, there's no doubt that the impact that Jesuit had on me set me up for the success that I had, particularly in the Marine Corps, and was that bedrock foundation that helped me become the man that I am today. You know, and I know a lot of y'all will hear a lot of speakers, and all through, you know, even your graduating seniors, you've heard a lot of speeches over your years of a time at Jesuit, and you probably won't remember much that I have to say today, although you may remember the sweet jacket. Pretty sweet, I know. It's pretty sweet. Yeah. I got a guy that can hook you up with one if you want. Let me know. I won't take that personally, but I do hope you do remember some of the things that I talk about later on, which I'll go into a little more. Harrison alluded to my Marine Corps career, obviously, just under 25 years in the Marine Corps, and obviously did 3 tours in Iraq and 3 tours in Afghanistan and Somalia and Bosnia and all over the world. I was always disappointed we never had like a fight in like Bahamas. You know, why can't we go somewhere nice? Always, you know, you find the worst places in the world, that's where they send us. That's what's the Marine's job, I guess. But you would never have known that I would have had a successful Marine Corps career had you seen me in my 1 semester of Marine Corps JROTC at Jesuit. It was horrible. I'm not going to lie. So Colonel Quinn and at the time Top Spencer were in charge, and I'll never forget, we had our big final inspection going on, and I had totally forgotten about it. Totally forgotten about it. So I wake up that morning in a panic. My uniform is in a pile on the floor, so I pick it up and just put on the uniform. My shoes looked like they'd been shined with a Hershey bar, I think. It was horrible. I was supposed to have a patch on for the Marine Corps JROTC patch on my other shoulder, which I had not sewn on, so I found some duct tape and two-sided it and just stuck it on. So I'm standing there in inspection, and they're looking at me, and I don't know if they want to laugh or punch me, because they peel off the patch, and then I'd sprayed this spray on my shoes to shine them up, and that's peeling off. It was a debacle. Horrible. Thankfully, my actual Marine Corps career went much better than my short-lived Marine Corps JROTC career. So, again, it's an epic fail there, but the valuable lesson being that, you know, it's interesting, I think, your time at Jesuit and your experience here, the baseline you build is what's important. What you did or necessarily did or did not achieve at Jesuit, you have all the tools in the toolbox to succeed. And from a pure ability, whether it's to write or to brief or to question and to ask questions and to ask the questions why, the way the Jesuit education process teaches you has set you up for success whether you know it or not. And that's the big takeaway I think you get from that Jesuit experience. And I speak from pretty, I think, good experience myself. My last tour, I was the commanding officer of 1,500 Marines in Camp Lejeune. The vast majority of them 18 and 22-year-old kids from all over the country. And you'd see them come in out of high school, and you'd see how, in many ways, woefully prepared they were for the world. They would be great Marines, don't get me wrong, and you can teach them to do things, but their core level of competency, a lot of times, they couldn't write, they couldn't brief, they couldn't, things that we take for granted at Jesuit are things that not every kid does well. And I think when you go to Jesuit, and everybody is a superstar, and everybody has talent, I think you can lose sight of how talented of a group of men that you are, and how well set up for success that you also are. Now, you're not finished products. I think it's like a bunch of how many in this graduating class? How many? 270, 78. 278 diamonds in the rough. You need a little more polishing, but there's a diamond there, and it just needs a little more polishing to really get out there and and grow your wings and use this baseline from Jesuit and to move on. I also had to reflect back to the exact time and date of where I was now almost 30 years ago when I was getting ready to graduate. So I was thinking back at that summer what I was going to do, and it was a pretty exciting time. You're excited to be leaving Jesuit. I'm going off to college at University of Virginia, and I'm fired up for that. I had some money, graduation money was awesome. I had some money in my pocket, and had no real requirements. Kind of it's gonna be the best summer of all time. So I did what most people probably would choose to do, and went off to Seward, Nebraska to detassel corn for the summer. You may ask what detasseling corn is and why I got to Seward, Nebraska. Well, I'll tell you. So a good friend of mine, that was a year ahead of me, didn't go to Jesuit, a guy named James Hummerghausen, who actually is the head waiter at Arno's now, was going, a Lutheran kid, went to a little school up in Nebraska, and convinced me that we'd make a ton of money if we went up and detasseled corn in Nebraska. So I didn't have anything really going on, so I was like, all right, sounds good. So we drove up there. I had no idea what detasseling corn was, so a little educational experience here. There's male and female corn. You got a male row and 5 female rows, and a male row and 5 female rows. So to detassel, you go through every row of corn, walking a mile and pulling off the top part of the corn. Brutal. It's 95 degrees. I'm living in this flop house on a mattress in this town that's about a one stoplight town. He has a girlfriend, so he's going with her every night, living off bologna sandwiches. It was brutal. So about 3 weeks into it, I'm like, all right, James, this ain't cutting it, man. I have my boys back in New Orleans are having a good time this summer. They're doing fun stuff. I got to get out of here. So we hightail it back, get back here just before 4th of July, and I bump into Ricky Trahant. And what are these doing? They're going to Destin for 4th of July, and a group of us back in the day, the big dogs, and that was a much better experience for my Jesuit summer than detasseling corn. So I just put that out there. Don't always follow your friend's advice right away, but if they're going to Destin, it's probably a good thing. So stick with that. The serious points I want to talk about today are kind of two topics. It's about leadership and it's about love. And I think the two go hand in hand, and to be a good leader, you have to have both. And I found that to be true for my leadership style. You have to have that love fusion with your leadership to be successful. There's a great book that I would commend to y'all. I know you don't have a summer reading list anymore. There's a guy named Chris Loney. So Chris Loney was a Jesuit seminarian for 7 years. He left the Jesuits and went to Wall Street and worked for J.P. Morgan for 17 years, and then wrote a book called Heroic Leadership. and it talks about the history of the Jesuits and the leadership of the Jesuits, from what they came to, to start off to where they ended up today, or kind of through history. It's an amazing book that, again, I would commend you to read. And maybe start thinking about, the success of the Jesuits and where, and the impact it still has on us today and kind of where it all came from. Because if you think of great leaders, who are some people you think about? For me as a military guy, you think guys like Patton or Robert E. Lee or, Ulysses S. Grant, Rommel, you name it. You think in the government, whether it's Franklin Roosevelt or Lincoln or Washington or Jefferson. In sports, a guy like, Drew Brees. In business, a guy like Bill Gates. Those are the guys that we kind of think about as being famous leaders and guys that we respect and read about. I'd tell you that Ignatius Loyola, probably on the top 10 list of leaders out there, a hell of a damn leader. If you look at where they started out, this society, this company of friends, it's a bunch of friends. I mean, really, it's a company of guys, and they had a vision for what they could become, and a passion. And it was, a much bigger than the group of them, and about being what we do, about being a man for others, and how they can, work for the Pope or work for their religion to better the world in the long run. And amazing to see the growth of the Jesuit order and how it all started off back in 1530s. If you look at the numbers, 100 years later, there's 15,000 Jesuits. If you look 200 years later, 22,000 Jesuits. That started off from a group of like 7 guys with a vision. It's amazing to see. And again, I'm not going to go into the details of that book, but it was amazing to me as a guy that I thought I knew something about the Jesuits to kind of understand the history of what it was all about in their leadership and their well-placed, I guess, access. I mean, if you look at, obviously, we see the fruits of their labor on the education piece of things, but to see that every king, every prince wanted a Jesuit in his court as his advisor. I mean, those were the guys, they were the guys behind the scenes that were running the show. Everybody wanted a Jesuit. I mean, that was all about. They were the guys that were doing the educating. They were teaching all the hierarchy and the rich folks around the world, across Europe. It's pretty amazing. And to see the missionary piece of going out, the first guys into China, the guys into India, all into South America. Amazing. And again, that long-term vision of what they wanted to be is something that, again, I think is underappreciated from a guy like Loyola. Amazing to me. But the other piece of that is love. And again, it's a word that I think I would talk about this with my Marines all the time, and they'd always get a little like, what's the colonel talking about love again? It's a little touchy-feely, but I mean, it's really at the end of the day, as a leader, you have to be that man for others. You have to want that guy on your left and your right you want to do what you can to make him succeed. It's not about my success, my personal success. It's about how can I take care of that guy to my left, that guy to my right. Can I write him a letter of recommendation? Can I just talk to him? He's having a bad day. Can I help his family out? What's he going to get to know him? Those seemingly little things make your unit so much better. If you really care about the people that are in your organization, if you show them love, if you show them that it's about them and you're really interested in their lives, your unit will be exponentially better. And I've also seen on the flip side of that, those leaders that are bad leaders, that are screamers and yellers, and it's all about them and their agenda, and it's, they will work their people to the bone to make themselves look good. Those leaders typically fall away. I think you need to have that love and appreciation for it's not about me, it's about the greater good of the team and the way to get the best effort of your team to take care of them. They know you have their back. They will charge a machine gun nest for you. And that's about love. It's pretty straightforward. And it's proven, and I saw it work. So I mean, you can't fake that. I saw personally again, and I talk about this too for you young guys, because we always talk about in the Marine Corps leadership and about having tools in your toolbox for leadership. You have probably, kind of your basic set of tools from Jesuit right now. You've done well, and you've obviously graduating and moving on to college. But you always need to be adding more tools to your toolbox of leadership, is what I say, because if all you got's a hammer and all you are is a screamer, you can't fix every situation. And it's great to just watch always, how does, find those people that you respect. How do they get things done? What's their subtle way? You know, sometimes you do have to yell, I got it. Sometimes you have to put a boot up somebody's ass. That works sometimes. But other times you pull them behind closed doors, just talk to them. Other times, you know, you never know what that tool is going to be in your toolbox. And again, I think as leaders, I think as young men that are going off into college, always be looking around and kind of see what works for your buddies, your peers, and keep adding those tools to the toolbox. Because it's leadership is an art. It really is an art. It's something you have to practice, and you have to want it and seek it out at all times. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. And again, always wrap that around with love and other people's best interest. You know, I was personally blessed, truly blessed, to work for some great leaders in the Marine Corps, guys that inspired me in combat and back stateside. There's a story I want to share today about a Marine that worked for me, a guy named Lieutenant Travis Manion. So Travis Manion, some of you know this story, was born in Philadelphia. He went to LaSalle High School there, went to the Naval Academy, wrestled at the Naval Academy. Was a great kid. And Joe's, if you don't know, at the Naval Academy, when you graduate from the Naval Academy, about 10% of the graduates can go in the Marine Corps. So Travis went into the Marine Corps and came to work for me at Recon Battalion in Camp Pendleton, San Diego. He deployed over with me to Iraq in 2007, and he was a guy that, even as a young lieutenant, just stood out to me as his leadership skills. The Marines gravitated toward him. He's one of those guys that just, you know, I was 12, 13 years older than him. I'm the senior guy in the unit, and I mean, he just had that quality, and it's hard to define sometimes, but he's one of those guys. And y'all have all met him. I'm sure you have in your class. Those guys just kind of like hanging out with because they always kind of get it. They're just natural born leaders. So Travis was actually out. He was assigned to work with the Iraqis. They were out. They got ambushed. He saved a couple of guys' lives in this ambush, and then was killed by a sniper. One of the toughest, probably the toughest thing I ever had to do in my Marine Corps career was talk to his parents after having seen Travis. I mean, I was there when they pronounced him dead. And to then call his parents the next day, and they wanted to know every detail about their son, and you can imagine the pain and emotion that goes into that. But you know, that spirit of Travis is something that we kind of, you know, 6 months, a year later, I stayed in touch with his family, and we wanted to do something to keep his spirit alive. And it's a pretty good story about Travis. Before he deployed over there, he had gone to an Eagles game. He's a big Eagles fan. And it's like a week before he deploys, and he's with his brother-in-law, and his brother-in-law is like, hey, you know, if I push you down the steps and you break your ankle, you won't even be able to go to Iraq, and you can stay home with us. And Travis, the story goes, looks back and says, hey, if not me, then who? If not me, then who? If I don't go, somebody's going to Iraq. I've been training for this mission. I'm the one that needs to go over there. I have to go over there. You know, if not me, then who? And I think that ties in some ways to what we also talk about as being a man for others. You know, it's about, you see that opportunity, you step up, and you have to be that guy sometimes, to be that man for others, to be, you know, if sometimes it's your burden to take. You have to step up and take that burden and take that leadership. And Travis, you know, epitomized that. And if there's a foundation now that I'm part of that actually tries to help, you know, bring his spirit on. So pretty amazing. Again, just some of the leaders that I have been personally touched by. One other just interesting note I want to share with you. I have a good friend of mine that's not from New Orleans. So he's a guy named Gene Perino. He's a doctor, he's a heart surgeon over at Ochsner. Grew up in Rome, Georgia. Went to school with me at UVA, and is back down here now. He's been here about 10 years. And he has a son who's about 8 years old now. And I keep asking, hey, I'm the godfather of his son. I'm like, hey, you send him to Jesuit? You send him to Jesuit? So he hasn't decided that yet, but he did tell me, I thought it was very insightful. He's like, you know, I've been here 10 years, and I met a lot of guys. You know, I met Newman guys, and St. Martin's guys, and, you know, De La Salle guys, and you name it. And he's like, I think Jesuit runs this city. I'm like, you know, I never really thought of it. I don't live here, but he's like, you know, everywhere, if I need to get something done, there's always a Jesuit guy that seems to know a guy that can get something done around here. I was like, you know, that's pretty apt. And you think about the diverse population we have here, and you know, it's pretty true. It's amazing the network that you have here, that you're moving into as graduates, that you can't appreciate today. That, again, if you need to get something done, a Jesuit guy can help you out. I mean, I guarantee you, the kind of the grease behind the wheels of the city is sitting in this room, and it's amazing. It's, again, something I did not appreciate. I had to have a guy from out of town kind of tell me, he's like, you know, you're exactly right. And that's what Jesuit's all about. It's that man for others piece. We're not necessarily the flashy guys, we're not necessarily always in the newspapers. It's the guy behind the scenes being that man for others, just, you know, putting in the hours, making the donuts every morning, and making this city run. So again, for the graduates, you're moving into that, and you should be very proud of it. So in closing, when I first started writing this speech, I had a lot more jokes in it and stuff, and it was pretty funny and talking about my experience in high school. But I really did want to share that idea, that concept of leadership and a loving type of leadership. I think that's important. I think it's something that I didn't even really appreciate that much till later in my life, and I know the success it's had for me, and I really commend all of you to try to take that approach to leadership. I also want to talk, I don't know, did y'all still do bathroom pep rallies? They're out there? All right, I'm just asking. So we obviously used to do some bathroom pep rallies back in the day, until actually one time I think somebody threw an M80 in a toilet and exploded it, and I think we had a little pause for a while. That's a whole different story. But so in the pep rally we used to sing, you know, a lot and get fired up for games. And I kind of had made an idea to sing some cadence here today as a Marine. And then I wavered on doing it. Then last night, I was at a dinner last night in Virginia where Drew Brees was the guest speaker. Pretty good. And he ended the speech in cadence. I'm like, well, hey, if Drew Brees ended in cadence, I'm damn sure I'm using cadence at the end of the day. So this is an audience participation part of the show right now. We close this down. So I lead, you follow. It's pretty simple, all right? You ready? All right. From sea to sea. From sea to sea. Part of the Jesuit family. Part of the Jesuit family. From sea to sea. From sea to sea. Part of the Jesuit family. Part of the Jesuit family. From east to west. From east to west. Jesuit High School is the best. Jesuit High School is the best. From east to west. From east to west. Jesuit High School is the best. Jesuit High School is the best. All day and night. All day and night. Proud to wear the blue and white. Proud to wear the blue and white. All day and night. All day and night. Proud to wear the blue and white. Proud to wear the blue and white. All right, hey, that's all I got. Thanks for having me. A pleasure to be here. Semper Fi. Hoorah.